Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in today to Canadians with Disabilities and Their Allies. My name is Brent Frain. I'm the host, and as usual, you can subscribe to your favorite podcast that's available on Spotify or your favorite apps where you find it useful and available to you. And today, I have Alun Davies joining me on the show, and Alun's going to be talking about tiny homes. It's always a great topic and always a delight to have you joining me on the show, Alun. And, everyone needs a home. So tiny homes may be the way to go with that. Thank you for joining me.
I might head down the photography rabbit hole. I haven't decided stool and showcase the Z8 yet. I don't know. I'm not one of these photographers that can do these camera reviews. I think these guys are way too connected to be able to do it without getting high cost covered.
Yeah, I got a Canon M6 now, which is a really small, but it's still an interchangeable lens camera. It's really nice.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Take pictures of the homes.
Yeah.
Well, I got one to do it. I just.
So Alun, on the tiny homes, how tall can they be built?
I think 14 feet off the trailer base is now that would depend, because a tiny home can be a container home, which means it's not running down the road, so it can be two container homes stacked like an L, right?
Right.
You can do all sorts of stuff. That goes out the window. But if you're talking about a tiny home that sits on a 3-wheel axle trailer, I think 14 feet, which allows them to clear any underpass. They can't be much taller than I think a semi trailer. I think they have a certain height factor they have to stay within.
But they're not all put together before they're dropped, are they?
Well,
they don't come assembled.
They're not all prefabricated.
They're built at a factory.
But then you have to pull them apart again and then reassemble on site, don't you? Or do they do that?
That's only a container home, and most of these days, these container homes or prefabricated homes are built on site and are literally dropped off on the location, whether it's on a foundation.
Oh, I was thinking that they had to I know that they build them, and then I would think for the most part they would build it and then disassemble and then drive them to the location and reassemble them again.
No. Yeah. Well, out here in Victoria, I know that there's the containers. They had a big crane came by and they dropped them off and then stacked them and then made them look like an apartment building. And apparently there's elevator in there and there's stairs in there. Wow, it's amazing what can be done with them.
Yeah. I mean, they're doing all sorts of things where they'll take a container home and then
4-story.
They'll put a slanted roof that overhangs the whole container home.
Right.
So the big pillars, so it slopes, and then the container home kind of nestles underneath the roof.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's an overhanging pitch roof,
Yeah.
Water will.
But I mean, but I think the ones on trailers come if you have someone build it for you. It's done on site, and then at the DIY people that build them in their driveways, right? And then they either take them to where they're going to live, keep them, or they put them in the backyard and make it all fancy. So
Okay.
Yeah, pop-up homes just like that. And they can be done and built so quick too.
that's what Toronto's calling those little carriage. Is that what they call them? The carriage homes?
Carriage home, yeah.
Carriage homes, yeah.
Is that what they're calling them? Or is another word for them? I think they're calling them.
Well, I think they used to call like the small houses like wartime houses, you know, like because they were just little boxes, you know.
But I'm talking about the new rules and regulations.
Yeah.
Or gave people the ability to have 3 properties, 3 homes on one property, and they had a word for tiny homes, but they were like alleyway out because a lot of the homes like in Toronto. In
Interesting.
there are these little back road alleyways, and that's where people would go into park. They wouldn't park in front of their house so much.
You could almost make a village for them, right? You can actually make a whole bunch of them into a whole community, and have all your resources and like shops and stores, everything, restaurants, everything that you want to go to. You can make like a whole community with tiny homes, really, in no time at all.
Just bought a chunk of property out in New Brunswick, and she's trying to start a tiny home community, and she bought 30 grand for the property, so they're starting to get the zoning for the water and stuff, and then they can build. But I think she's doing it on a pretty tight budget because the updates are very micro updates, and she's using TikTok as her platform to update her. I messaged her on TikTok, and I messaged on a comment on one of her posts, and she said I don't have a Twitter for my tiny home thing, but I probably should get one. She said that she might be interested in doing a tiny home guest speech thing. I haven't done one in so long. I think the last one I did before I moved to Kingston, and I've got 2 guests, but it's been really hard with all the festivals to get Patricia to co-host. She's been under a lot of stress lately, so we've been kind of trying to juggle and figure out when we're going to start the tiny home thing again, and not everyone that was there a month ago is there now, so it's been a bit spotty to get spaces up and running like we were doing. So
it's kind of glitchy sometimes, I guess, especially with a lot of little bots running around behind it, and
thanks Elon.
Flexing in the PWD camps where people that were there aren't there now, and people that weren't there are now, and I'm trying to figure out. I joined a Discord that Mitchell set up on the Discord server, and sometimes it's active and sometimes it's not, and I'm kind of a little bit in the dark of what was going on. Anyway, so we haven't done a dedicated tiny home nomadic space in probably since June. So
building the tiny homes, I'm sure it can be probably pretty cost effective, especially somebody on a limited budget. I mean, to actually own, I guess what I'm saying is, for somebody on a fixed income budget, how would they be able to afford like a tiny home? Could they maybe it as an option of like rent to own?
Well, this is what I was saying at the second round table is if there was some incentive where a person's income, whatever it is, ODSP or part-time work or whatever, could be counted as income, regardless of where it originated, to be counted as like, I can't walk into a bank and get, if I had a job, maybe I could do it, but the bank would not give me a mortgage based on my ODSP, which is silly. But if I said, hey, like this tiny home is going to be $150,000, which is about the going rate for them, you can do it DIY, but you always run the risk of going over budget when you DIY it, and are you getting a really finished product unless you're working with, your dad's an electrician and your uncle's a plumber and your cousin's a framer, and they decide that they're gonna you scooped up this 30-foot trailer and it's gonna take 6 months in the backyard on weekends to get it up and get it insulated and properly furnished and stuff. But if you're going to a company that builds them, there needs to be some incentive, just like it is getting a regular home where, and as I was saying in one of the open mics when I was out by the water, towards the end there, if the Ontario government or the federal government said, we accept your disability amount as an actual income, we will give you X amount of dollars to budget your tiny home, say up to 200,000 is the cap, and then that income that you get, instead of it going to a landlord,
right,
is going to the mortgage company directly.
Absolutely.
The mortgage company's going, okay, this guy's paying us $1,000 a month. He's going to live in it. And the mortgage rate is 10 years or whatever it is, whatever percentage. And then you've got some sort of incentive to landowners where, just like you can apply for the dental benefit or whatever, the workers' benefit or whatever it is, that you can, maybe they call it the national landlord or the national property benefit, right? And someone like an old farmer or old family man, someone that maybe they have this house out in the country or even downtown, just outside the downtown core, and they've got this big backyard property, because a lot of them had really narrow properties, but lots of back grass in the back. They could apply for this national homeowner benefit ongoing. Maybe it's only $400 every month, right?
But compared to all the high
compensates them
like a drop in the bucket
for having this tiny house on their property. So they're least likely to go, I'm out of pocket here. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like a nice guy. The tiny home is really nice, but like, we're sharing our property now. But if they've got a little bit more income coming in, then maybe they're a little less, and you've agreed with them to maybe cut their grass for them.
Yeah, in exchange to keeping the rent down. So like, say, like you mentioned, Alan, like $400, but you have the option now of you're owning the place. It says you're making payments and you're going to own it.
Even in all season, what do they call the mobile home, where there's already mobile homes, but they have certain spaces open where someone could put their tiny home, because that's very common in states where these
mobile parks.
These old mobile homes are now starting to integrate tiny homes into the mobile park, and maybe that's happening in Canada. I don't really know, but they could apply for the home benefit, whatever it's
Home
homeowner
benefit program.
whatever
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
call.
Whatever magic word it is that they want to use. Yeah.
So now you have someone who's on fixed income. They're instead of them burning their money in a bucket every month, paying $1,000
Mm-hmm.
a month, they have electricity, they have water, they have sewage, they have security, they have a parking spot if they need it.
Mm-hmm.
They can have their wheelchair, their tiny home being wheelchair
Yeah.
accessible if it needs to be.
Yeah, accessible. We up to ramps going up there. Yeah.
A ramp going up to their deck.
Elevators.
And we're not even getting into these tiny homes that are smart devices where they have a key fob and the key fob, as soon as they tap it, opens the sliding doors. When they go up the ramp,
Mm-hmm.
and they got groceries, they can just tap the key fob on the edge of the ramp, and
Yep.
the tiny home main doors open and up they roll, right? So
Oh yeah, that sounds great because I mean, tapping a key fob against the door, a mechanism on the door, and then now that tap it again, now the door opens, and then you go.
yeah, it could just be a little round. It could be a round little disc that or a motion sensor thing that just looks like to the invisible eye, to the naked eye, it just looks like what do you call those LED solar deck
Mhm.
deck lights, and it's just a
Right.
little module, and it looks decorative, but you can put your key fob up to it, and it will or it's even integrated into an app on their phone where they just hold their phone up to their face,
Yeah, and then it just opens.
or they double tap their phone, or whatever it is to if if they're blind or whatever, it's sight
Yeah.
impaired. The phone may not read their face ID, but they can put in their phone password code,
Mm-hmm.
and that
Open door.
yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, or yes, either you either look at the phone, if you can speak into it, or if a person's deaf or sight impaired, then there's mechanisms of accessibility options on your phone that you could use, right?
There's my home care kit, right? I've
Oh,
got 2 lamps and my TV on it, so you can go, hey, you don't have to say hey Siri, you just go Siri or
hmm,
Alexa if you're on Android, and say open my front door,
right.
and
It's so handy.
yeah,
Or you can get your wife to do it.
Right. I remember a building that I lived in, and they had the fob system where the door would open automatically. The sidewalk was a little bumpy on the way down, but they did have the fob system on it, and that's as an older building. And it was neat because you didn't have to use your key. You just boom, and then boom, the door open. And then when I moved to a brand new building, Ellen, go figure, nice ramp all the way up, and they don't have a fob system.
Crazy.
Because the owner didn't want to invest in it. I talked to the developers who built it. Why isn't there a fob system? Because the owner didn't want to invest us to pay that, and it would have only cost them less than $1,000 to install it in. And now, if they were to do it now later on, it's now going to cost even more. Oh,
Yeah.
I know our co-op had a key fob system for all the gates and stuff when it was downtown Toronto. It was a landmark building, so it took a lot of fixing, because they were, when it was first built, the Orange Cliff Co-op was 4 big bedroom units, like 4-bedroom units, and then it got bought up by the CHMC, the Co-op Federation,
Mhm.
a municipal co-op, but it was run like it was a federal co-op. I mean, when Tommy and I were there for the first 4 years before they changed manager, it was run like tight ship.
Mhm.
You know,
Some of
and
some of the buildings are some of them are managed really well, like they're really kept up, and we have a co-op building right next door to where we are, and they're constantly doing renovations. They're doing renovations right now as we speak out there, and they're sawing away. Gee, I tell them, hey, come on over to my building. But you're not a co-op building here, you're run by a different management company.
I don't, that's the thing too. I don't understand why these co-ops aren't being given money to acquire other buildings to
Mhm.
extend their co-ops. You know, like saying, okay, well, the across from our co-op is a townhouse that's been flipped on the market 3 or 4 times, and
Mhm.
it's a little older and it's a little more tired, and I think we probably have to drop $1 million into it,
Mhm.
get it up to code, but we would have like 30 more units or
Mhm.
6 more units, and that's something that Trudeau or whoever's in power by the time of the next election has to do, is they have to start funding the co-ops again to give them at least a bit of capital to that, where the co-ops have to get creative and come up with fundraising ways to generate revenue with the
Mhm. See, the federal government, they were in the game of housing decades and decades ago, and then they got out of it. And now look what we have. We have a housing complete disaster across the country.
we have a SHITIE show going on.
Yeah, yeah, and then they wonder why people can't afford.
It's a cluster bleep.
It's a
Yeah,
cluster.
yeah, pretty much, pretty much. You know, there's now our housing minister in BC. They're working with the private sector. They're working with the nonprofit sector, like not for profit. They're working for the for profit sector, which is amazing because they're working with all sectors of the housing. So if people want to be under the government housing, meaning RGI, rent geared to income, or they're working with the actual sector where people are paying market rent. So if market rent is, over $2,000, 3,000, 4,000 in Vancouver, it's 4,000 for a two-bedroom.
There needs to
Three,
be a
yeah,
high. There needs to
yeah.
be a hybrid middle.
There
Of
needs to be, yeah, there needs to be a balance.
all like if a tenant only has 500 month for
Yeah.
rent, then 500 has to be kicked in to cover the rent, so that the tenant can feel like they like. That's what the Kingston housing prevention program is supposed to do. But Doug Ford's not giving these
Hmm.
cities any money, any of them, because
Wow.
it's dried up. Like they're telling everyone 5 years, 8 years, and this is supposed to be an initiative that was supposed to kick in within weeks of someone applying for it. They're now being told that that fund there's nothing there, and it's
Wow.
because and Doug's got the money to do it. He could
Billions
be
of dollars. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
No,
like in my case, I mean, I'm in a little bit different situation, but I'm going to make a connection anyway. Is like, I have a condo here, and I was lucky enough to have the ability to mortgage it when we got it,
yeah.
and now I'm kind of over a barrel. But that's beside the point. But what I was going to say is, when you're in a condo like this, you have monthly strata fees. So, I have to pay a strata fee every month over and above my mortgage, or
yeah, it's like
what I owe, right? And
condo
and
fee.
if the government did that, where they, if the government could get back into housing and say, have so many X amount of units, and then, like Alan was saying, you have your shelter portion of, say, $500 a month. if
Right.
that could be turned into some kind of, where the strata fee,
Mhm.
where the government could look at that and say, well, okay, that's $500 of reinvestment into the building again as for maintenance. Because I think what was happening too is you get these buildings and the government just kind of builds them and then forgets them.
Mhm.
And so you don't get the reinvestment, or like you don't get the regular maintenance to keep it looking nice.
Well,
But I
Yeah,
mean, that's the whole point of a strata fee, though, is to make sure everything's maintained properly. And
Yeah.
if the government would just do that and just treat all like $500 of the shelter would be reinvested as a strata fee to maintain buildings properly, you wouldn't have this whole, like we were saying, shit show of all these dilapidated buildings that are falling apart, with like, even something simple like all these buildings in the last couple of years that, where all these people died from the heat dome because none of them had proper heating and cooling.
Yeah. Well, here's another idea too. Like, you mentioned the word shelter. Like, so, like, say they give it all a new name right across the country. BC, every province, and they give it one name, whatever it is. I don't know. We'll call it PWD benefits. Okay, well, just for instance. Now, under that, they get rid of the word shelter out of the equation altogether. I know that one of our guests on our roundtable, I know every time I mention it, she's goes bananas. And and which is rightfully so, right? Because if you don't have an address, then you don't get your income. It's like, wow. So out of, say, we'll call it PWD benefits. So, but out of that new name, okay, there's a portion of, say, that $500 that we're talking about right now. So out of that portion, which, I mean, it could be allocated for if a person wanted to pay a strata or like a maintenance upgrade, but have that option of owning their own home, but paying that small portion if they wanted that. If they didn't, then they could just use their check for your rent or wherever your accommodation may be. But you have that option of that low threshold of opt out, to say opting in, opting in, opting out, bus pass. But
This
I mean,
sounds like a bus pass. I was going to say that sounds like a
but
bus
have that
pass.
option of saying, yes, I want to be part of that program, or no, I don't. Right now, I don't,
Yeah.
but I want to keep it as an option. I think it could be good.
I think one of
It
the
could
problems
work.
in Toronto is, and I'm sure the owners of condos and these guys that want to build all these condos all over the city are rubbing their hands. It's these older buildings that Cadillac Fairview and have owned for years, and they were built in the 70s, and they're not maintaining them. And the landlords just hope that people will move out of frustration.
Yep.
And they refuse, like I remember I lived in one in Jamestown, Toronto, which was a cluster, 10 high rises, or something like that. With front, and they did a big renovation where they took the ugly overpass walkway out, so it was more looking less ghetto, I guess.
Yeah.
Is the word. But 80% of the time, of the 3 elevators we had running, 2 were okay, and 1 was take your chances.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I got stuck in one, and they were never the 3 the same.
That's what they call the elevator, Ellen. They call it the elevator.
I got stuck in one, and my son was in bed. I had gone downstairs to throw the garbage out because I was on the 17th floor.
Ooh, just throw it over.
And I wasn't facing. Yeah, I couldn't drop the garbage over my balcony and have it hit the dumpster. I was on the wrong side.
Whoops.
Watch
your pillow.
So I jumped. I went down the elevator. Everything was fine. Used my buzzer key, threw the garbage out the back in the dumpster, came back in, called the elevator, got up to about the 10th floor, and the sucker stopped. I was stuck in that elevator for 2.5 hours.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, I'm talking to emergency services. I came down to put my garbage out. I have an 8-year-old living in my building, in my apartment, who's asleep, and I'm stuck in an elevator. Oh, we'll get you as soon as possible.
Oh my gosh.
almost in the pitch dark for 2.5.
Oh man.
Wow.
And I talked to the management company. She said, "Well, they don't fix the elevators. It's not our fault." And it's like, yeah, but it's your property. It's the owner's fault for not maintaining the building to the point where people aren't getting stuck in the elevators.
Well, actually, that reminds me. I've mentioned this before on a previous podcast. It was a while ago now, but I don't know if you remember, like maybe 3 or 4 years ago, there was a building, and the landlord did not. The elevator broke down, and this was over Christmas, so it was like maybe late November, early December, and the elevator broke, and the landlord didn't want to fix the elevator, and there was like lots of elderly and lots of disabled people in the building, and the landlord said, "Screw it, I'm not fixing it," and it stayed broken for like it was
Months.
months, like at least 2 or 3 months,
strike,
right
now.
And this was like over Christmas, and so I was like, "Merry Christmas," you're stuck in your building. Too bad.
Well, they hope that the owners, the guy that owned my building, because it was owned by Cadillac Fairview at one point, but they sold off Jamestown to independent buyers. So you have 3 or 4 different, and this guy was, I would call, the definition of slumlord. He showed up the day I moved, and Chris and I had tucked the U-Haul truck in on an angle because we were doing it ourselves from Niagara to Toronto. We did it ourselves, so we weren't in his way at all. We had a huge space before the parking spots on one side of us, and the building right almost snug up. So we weren't in the way of people coming out or anything. We were occupying that. We had an elevator locked off, but beyond that. Anyway, this guy pulls up in this gold color Cadillac, pulls in on an angle, taking up almost 2 spots, gets out. He's got gold chains, leather jacket, and he just looks at us like we're trash.
I pity the fool.
I'm talking like
almost like a living
I own this building, and I also own a few jewelry shops. Don't tell the tax man kind of guy. In the fancy sweater he bought from the Bay. This guy was sleazy. He was the poster child for sleazylandlord.com. And
that's when you like to have those little spike belts right underneath it, so they drives away. Bang!
But it made me realize there's so many guys that they come from. Some of them live here, and they just buy up these older buildings from foreclosures or handshake deals or whatever it is, and they get them on pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
And I mean, there was a guy on City TV, and he's kind of a pit bull. He goes after Doug Ford quite a bit. Like, what is this guy doing? Like, especially during the Greenbelt thing. And I think he's like on that, what's it called, Breakfast TV. Dan would probably know who he is if I showed Dan a video. This guy's he's quite outspoken on political stuff in Toronto. And he was saying, these guys, they own these buildings, they're wealthy as crap, and they figure, I'm gonna wait my tenants out until they leave, and then I'm gonna pump up the rent.
Crank it up, yeah. And it's a gentrification, Alan. It's
they can't crank it up more than 2.5% if it's a new lease, right? Like,
but on that, Ellen, though, if there's a vacancy control, like I'm not sure in Ontario if they don't have vacancy control, then they can crank it up to, as soon as that tenant leaves,
Yeah.
they can actually crank it up as high as they want. And that's what's going on here.
They can only charge, I believe they can only charge the current tenant
Yeah.
5% every
The
year.
current tenant, yeah.
But if
Once they leave.
let's say Mr. or Mrs. Jones need to go to a senior's home and they've hit that age where living on their own is
Right.
or
Feasible.
it's two roommates and they're going off to different universities or whatever.
Mhm.
But the amount of loopholes these landlords know,
Yeah.
they know how to play the system, and a lot of them are very cheap, and they will find any way to hold off on doing. I had the lady in the apartment above me, her bathtub was sinking, and part of my ceiling rotted, and I could actually had a big hole over my shower, and it was
no.
7 weeks, and
Oh no.
all the steam and stuff started lifting up the parquet in front of my bathroom.
Oh
and
no.
The super came in, and he didn't give me notice. I was working on my computer. I was using the diner in my apartment as my office. And it was where I was studying because it was at Seneca. And he just walked right in my apartment. I'm coming to show the contractor what to do in your, and the patch job was. I have done drywall here and there, bits and pieces of sanding, and without any experience, I could have done a better job in this guy's patchwork. It was he just slapped the drywall mix over his patch. It was horrible, and then he painted over it. It looked horrible. And then the super's walking around. I see you ruined our floors. I'm like, well, that's from that hole that's been sitting in my ceiling for sure it is. I'm like, I took pictures of that hole from the day it happened, when all the drywall fell on my head almost.
Oh my God.
To the day you came to fix it. And they put a garbage bag up over the hole for 4 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, I was until
I'm lucky nobody actually fell through the fell through your ceiling.
I was in the shower. Yep. I could look up at the tub, the inner part of the tub above me.
Oh my! Imagine the tub come crashing down.
Yeah.
But it's like, you have got to be kidding me.
Oh, it's terrible, Alan.
It was, and that's just like, they just come in when they feel like it. They don't
talk about slumlord.
They don't follow a lot of these guys are and I hate to go out to countries and stuff, but a lot of them are from Armenian, or they're Serbian, or
you have to be held accountable,
or they're just shady people that they're like a lot of supers. I said to the one super, my sink was leaking in the bathroom, not the bathroom, in the kitchen. Like, no matter how you tighten the knob and it's dripping, I'm like, I'm wondering if I could get that fixed, because all we hear all night is drip, 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 drip. And when we use our sink, water wells up, and you could feel like it was all loose, right? And he said, and he looked at me with a smug smile and said, I don't do that kind of thing. I'll call a plumber and see when he can come in for you. And he walked out.
Pass the buck then. Yeah, that's what a lot of slumlords do, Alan, because I've gone through the same thing.
Back in the day, if you were super, you got either a big portion of your apartment free in exchange for doing things like fixing taps.
Well, that's actually how a co-op works, right? Because when you sign into a co-op, that's part of the agreement, is that anybody that agrees to live in a co-op, you agree to take on a job, some kind of maintenance job, to look after the owners, the other people in the co-op.
Yeah, our co-op repair guy, I forget his name. he was fabulous. I moved in and he said, "Do you have a kitchen table?" I said, "No, but I bought 3 floating shelves. You know, those IKEA floating shelves that don't have, you can't see the hinge, you can't see the brackets. They screw into the wall and then the shelf slides over top." He said, he said, "I can put that up for you." He he was great. Like, he went out of his way. If I had a floating shelf to put up in my bathroom, he said, "I may not be able to get to it this week, but next week I'll come in and I'll put up." And I remember the holes that came in the pre-drilled holes in the floating shelf that I got from IKEA didn't line up with the studs. So he
Oh,
marked them off. He marked off where he needed them, and he went out in the courtyard with the frame unit from the shelf and drilled the holes he needed.
mhm.
Came back in and put it up, rather than saying, "Oh, you can't use this shelf. It doesn't line up
Right.
with our studs." And he, without even asking, he's like,
Wow.
"I'll get."
And you're gonna find some landlords that are like that, that are actually will go the extra mile to actually accommodate and make things better. Because there are some landlords, unfortunately, they'll say, "Oh, well, you caused the damage," or "It wasn't like that when you moved in." I
I
didn't
tell people now, when they move into an apartment, use
take
that
pictures.
one phone, use that wonderful phone, or borrow a friend that has a good phone. The moment before you even move a piece of furniture and
Mhm.
go around and take those pictures,
Yep.
put them in a folder, email them to yourself,
Yep.
because if when you move out and they say, "Oh, well, you gouged up a wall or something," you can say, "I have photos of every room from all aspects,
Mhm.
and that gouge was here, and here's the date on the photo." Because all these new phones have called meta data in them.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. They date stamp them.
I can look up a photo on my phone. I can look up a photo on my phone. Let me look up this one. And if I
That's
click,
why they call them f-stop.
info, it tells me this photo was taken October 12th at 12:45, and it's an old cathedral by my chapel by my thing, and it tells me what ISO it was, what's the date, all that stuff. You can see it. I don't know if it shows it
And
up.
It's blurry. You
it's
have the
blurry.
blur on there. Yeah.
Your phone, even if it's a cheap Android,
Mhm.
in daylight, the pictures are going to be good enough, and the data, the
It'll even
metadata,
show you where, even show you location of where that photo was taken to
you
sometimes.
can you
You
can
can even
open
have
you can open
find.
that photo like that. Take about 10 of them,
Oh yeah.
like, walk into the apartment, but screenshot them with the info on there, so it shows the room, and then
Yeah.
below the metadata, you just, you take the picture, you click it, and then you screenshot your photos, and then you email those photos, and you can delete the ones you took of the apartment, or send them as well. And if you ever
Mhm.
have a landlord tenant thing, because the landlord's saying, "Well, you put a hole in my wall, and whatever," and you're going, "No, nobody did any maintenance to it. The apartment wasn't painted. Like, whoever
Mhm.
did this apartment." I mean, my roommate, my former roommate said, "You're not great at painting, Alan. Don't paint your apartment unless you have someone come and do it or help you, whatever." Um, I think I'm a bit better painter than he gave me credit for, but it is what it is. I'm
Mhm.
not speaking him in any way. Maybe I'm not as good as I think I am. But I'm walking around this apartment. I'm going, they didn't even tape the door handles. They just glued the paint on. Like,
Yep. You
there's
slap it on.
there's patches in the hallway
Slap it
of
on the rent.
where they had a hole. They just took a slab of drywall and just
Oh yeah. Yeah.
and just they didn't paint
Yeah. And
the
then just
hole.
paint over top of it, right? And say, "Hey, it's
They didn't
fully
bother
renovated."
they didn't bother doing that. They just posted. I posted a picture on my Facebook because Amazon had dropped off a package, and when I went to look for it, it was gone.
Right. I remember hearing about that. I'm sorry that
So-
happened to you.
And it wasn't anything special. It was a bunch of silicone inserts that go in an air fryer.
Right. But it
I
didn't
got
belong to
money
somebody
for
else.
it.
It belongs to you.
But you can see the hallway, and it shows with the Amazon driver. It has to take a picture of the delivery guy of the door he left the package at.
Yeah,
And
they
I
take a picture of it and
and I'm
state stamp.
and I'm going, who's doing the maintenance in this building? And they just
Mhm.
like, even in summer now they've addressed it, but I looked up at the lights in the ceiling just by where the elevator was on.
Hanging by wires or
These bugs all inside the light.
oh,
So
cockroaches.
I guess my point is the people that own these buildings, especially if they think that they are able to get away with it.
Yeah.
They do at the bare minimum. And like I've had my water turned off 4 times for maintenance since I moved here. Like,
Yeah, we've had the same problem here.
slap a Band-Aid on it. Slap a Band-Aid. Don't do it all the way. Just kind of fix it so we don't have to worry about it for 4 months. That's the attitude.
You know, I think sometimes, Alan, that the landlords will do that. Some landlords, some slumlords. I mean, there are some good landlords, and I want to make sure, the listeners out there listening saying, I'm not, hey, he's bashing all landlords. No, I mean, there are some slumlords out there that deliberately will irritate you so much that you will move because they want to jack up the rent.
And there's some bad tenants out there.
Well, yeah, there's some bad tenants out there who will deliberately irritate the landlord too.
Or they'll just go into or
they'll thrash a place or
on paper looks good, their credit is decent enough to rent to, their income is guaranteed, because if you throw on assistance, they can have their benefits direct. Like I'm doing my
directly
goes directly to
the landlord.
My management ODSP cuts my management company.
Okay.
They get it right up the bat. I just get a receipt in my mailbox saying that
oh, that's handy. Yeah, like a service provider then. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what you're too.
So the landlord ends up with someone who's a complete hoarder. And
yes.
You know what I mean? And they're stuck with the shit show at the end of the lease, like they'll come in to make sure that the person's moved out and they've left everything, and the kitchen's not accessible because it's covered in dirt and the sink and everything. I worked, so I feel like I see both sides, like you. I see
both sides. Yeah, me too.
I see both sides. I see that. I've had wonderful, but the co-op treated me and my son really well. I've had apartment buildings I've lived in over the years that the landlords were really decent, and I've had some landlords where as soon as they've got your money, they won't do squat.
I've had landlords where they'll say, well, I need to get things fixed for myself first, and then you as a tenant, you'll get it fixed. I've had landlord where they've managed to vacate 2 units, 2 floors of a building because they wanted to get their quota, a brand new building, before we moved to Victoria. And now we're here where, if it doesn't need to be fixed, we don't want to hear from you. We just want to collect the money. But I'm fortunate that we have a roof over our head right now until we look at options where we can relocate back to the mainland, because that's where we want to be, accessible transit, having everything around us.
Is Langley a part of Vancouver? Downtown kind of? Is it more?
It's part of Metro Vancouver, but Victoria, we're just across the pond, so you have to take the ferry.
I never made it out to Victoria. When I was there in '96, I made it to what's the name of the island, and I remember there being a big propeller. It's like a fishing market, and there was this big propeller was kind of like a landing dock, maybe for the ferry or something.
Oh, that'd be that's probably Vancouver. That's probably the um
It's
yeah, that's
it's very touristy almost, and there's this almost this bridge. Is it
oh yeah, that'd be the that's the Lionsgate Bridge. That's
maybe
that'd be in Vancouver and Stanley Park.
I just remember the big propeller, and I was there in like '96, and there's this huge. It was kind of a wharf, and there were
Yeah,
little stores and all this stuff, but it was
no,
I can't remember what it's called.
more Twosson.
It was
Twossen's for toward Victoria, but Big Wharf, yeah, like an area. Yeah, you're probably looking at.
a restaurant. There were little restaurants. But I just remember the big. It was like probably a cruise ship propeller from the.
Okay, then that would be probably Vancouver at the Port of Vancouver, the harbor, because they got like a sea bus there, and they got all the cruise ships pull in there, and they got Harbor Air that's there. So it's probably, and they have a 96. So yeah, it's probably the yeah, they got the big convention center there. It looks like big. They're like
Yeah.
how do I describe it? It's like a tent almost. Like yeah, it's huge.
Pavilion. I yeah, I,
It's Canada Place they call it.
I don't remember much of Vancouver. I only kind of
Pretty sure that's-
I spent about a week in Vancouver, and we went to a beach in Burnaby. So I was probably in Jamming Singh's backyard, so to speak, as far as where he kind of spent a lot of his time at the beginning as a NDP MPP, I guess he was, or whatever.
Oh yeah, yeah. Vancouver right now is almost like a ghost town, right? And a lot of people call it because it's so expensive. And now I hear that there's talk about rezoning land to basically make 3 to 6 plex housing. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen there.
It was dreadfully expensive when I went there. The only
Oh,
thing
it's a lot more expensive now.
even that was even '96. The only thing that in '96 I remember is that you didn't have to pay first and last. You had to pay first and half of last. It was like rent and a half.
Well, right now, Ellen, it's $4,000 on average for a for 2-bedroom unit, $3,000 for a 1-bedroom unit in Vancouver.
Well, Tom does janitorial work, right?
Yeah.
Tom, the basic income guy, and you know,
right.
I always make the point, like, you have all these millionaires living downtown, and yet they're like, well, who's gonna clean our toilets or something? And it's like, well, the only people that can clean your toilets are people that are busting it in from like Chilliwack or something, because no janitor can afford to live down in Vancouver anymore. So you know, if you want janitorial staff, they're all coming from like Chilliwack, who knows Mission or something, right?
But even then, they get stuck in the traffic, and then they can't get out there in time, and then they lose their job. Well, that's 4 jobs down the drain.
I mean, we talk about trickle down all the time. Well, that's a huge trickle down impact, right? It's like if you can't, if blue collar workers can't afford to live and operate in the same space as people that have a lot of money. I mean, I'm not begrudging people that have money. If you have money, great, but you still have to have, you know, a cross section of housing available for all walks of life in every community, right? That's including Vancouver. You can't just make Vancouver, it's all for yuppies now, all for people that have millions or billions of dollars.
It's almost like the haves and the have-nots. But here's the problem.
My backyard.
Yeah, it is the and it's like why tiny homes. You know, and I'll have to have you on again, as a follow up on the tiny home stuff, Ellen, for sure, because we're going to get into the transportation issue connected with tiny homes, because we're all kind of leave off on the topic of it is basically Neil has made a good point of that. If you're commuting too far, and you can't be in the community that you need to work in. Now, there's a problem. If you're spending like 2 hours in commuting time because you can't afford the home in that community, there's a huge disconnect. Now, of course, the Trans-Canada Highway, there's talk about expanding it from 2 lanes, 3 lanes, but then it's bottlenecked right into into like just 2 lanes going further eastward in the valley. Now, the problem on that is that you've got increased population of over 450,000 people into the country. Then there's 1 million people that are unaccounted for that are come into the country that are foreign students that are here. I don't know why they can't account for them, figure out, but anyway, whatever. But that's in an injection into society. Like,
They use an abacus. They use an abacus to count.
Yeah, but where are we going to house those people? You know what I mean? Like, so now that's why we're in not even like a housing crisis. We're in a major disaster. Like, it's a shit show. Yeah, should we call it, right? I mean, how did we get here? Like,
I think the government needs to go, whether it's a high-rise apartment from the 70s, or if we're going to be building container home apartment buildings, or if we're doing laneway homes, which is basically a tiny home.
Right.
We've got to start buying up stuff and converting it into and not going by what Trudeau considers affordable, because I'm sorry, $50 for a bachelor is not affordable housing.
Yeah, like affordable to who? That's the word that a lot of the politicians like to use is affordable housing. Well, affordable to who? If you're making $500,000 a year or 600,000, well, it might be affordable to them, or somebody who's making a 6-figure salary, or somebody who's making 30, 40,000, or I'll use another example. Before we moved to where we are now, we applied at 8 places, 8 corporate landlords, and they called it affordable housing, but we didn't qualify because we weren't making $4,500 to $5,000 a month, but they called that affordable housing. And that was 40 to 50% of your income. Well, that's the other way around on the equation, but we'll get into another debate on that.
Are you making $9,000 a month of income?
Yeah, exactly. And well, and I was actually, our rent at our current landlord where we were renting from, we were paying that much in the rent. That was the amazing part, is that what we blew our mind, because we were paying $1,510 at the time. And I was like, well, what the heck? And the other place wouldn't rent to us because we had been making $45,000 to $5,000 a month. And I said, how does that make sense? Even the current landlord at the time, she says, Brent, that makes no logical sense. You can pay your rent here. Why won't they rent to you? Because I'm not making that much money.
They need to they need to readjust what they consider affordable. There has to be some kind of baseline that if it's not under 900, it's not. If it's over 800, it's not affordable housing.
Yeah.
Have to have, and okay, that's
but the government just loves to make stuff up, though. I mean, I always say the pink unicorn, right? It's like throw a pink unicorn.
Yeah. And for you,
here's affordable housing. Chuck.
I'm an equal opportunity voter. I don't think any of them are telling the truth when it comes to most of them.
Yeah.
I think the way to tell they're lying is to see if the lips are moving.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Where's that script there?
Yeah.
But Alan,
I'm at the point where I would trust a robot. I would rather have a robot be the MPP than
maybe get Google Home to do it. Yeah.
And if you're out there watching, Pierre, the whole no glasses and the what do they call it, the contacts with the Ray-Bans, doesn't cut it. You're still a turkey. You're out there, Pierre, and you're surfing YouTube at 2 a.m. looking for something to poke at. We're not buying the cool version of you. You're still a turkey.
Wow, Thanksgiving is past now, so.
And the next segment when I have you on, we're gonna talk about what is truly affordable for housing for who? And that will be a good one that we'll really dive into, and having wraparound transit infrastructure, how important it is to build tiny homes in a community where it's truly accessible.
I really believe in my closing comments that the only way to make affordable housing through tiny homes and give it is have it under the umbrella of Trudeau's his new incentive thing where people can get a mortgage if they're just starting out, and tiny homes falling under that, as well as any kind of disability benefit being able to be
Automatically.
It needs to be let. That's the one thing that really ticked me off with this Canadian disability benefit, is they didn't put anything in there. And
It's blank.
I was talking to, I think it was Mitchell, and he and I were agreeing completely that I think it was Mitchell, it might have been someone else, that there was nothing in there stating that a person's pension, whether it benefit, is considered a guaranteed income.
It should be. It should be guaranteed. It used to be. I know in BC in the 90s they had it as a.
In the eyes of these people that do the financing for housing, your ODSP, your PWD, whatever province it is.
Yeah.
If you have a benefit and it is over $1,000, it should be considered guaranteed income, which means if you want to buy a tiny home, or you want to, or a relative is willing to give you a condo that they want to give down to you, they want to put it in trust, but there will be expenses connected to it.
Right.
That your benefit is now considered, because if you go into
it's considered charity now. They're just giving us charity now.
Yeah.
It's not
a little bit here, a little bit there, and then they'll say, "Look what we did," but there's more to do.
I don't want to head down the rabbit hole of UBI or basic income.
Yeah, no.
One thing that I'm hoping that, and I think it's a when, not an if, the way AI is going, because I was watching on the UBI Works, they were showing this robot in China cooking food, like it was flipping the deep fryer and doing the activity. So I consider UBI or basic income, whatever it's going to be called, a when moment, not an if moment.
I absolutely, because it is coming, and
it needs, and I would rather put my energy and my support behind a basic income, because it will be a taxable income, and the banks and the institutions, like if I had a UBI and it was like $2,200 a month, I could go call up a financing place. Like we had that guy on, I think one of my things, his name was Dave or something. He was on one of our nomadic things. He did all the financing for tiny homes in Canada. I forget his name. I've got him saved as a contact in the messenger on Facebook. But is to be able to say, okay, I have $2,200 to live on per month, which means I want to be financed for a tiny home, because I know in 10 years that baby, that 15 on the outside, that puppy, by the ages, if I'm 52 and they put a UBI out next year, by the time I'm 63, 64, that puppy is mine.
Exactly.
And I can have it delivered out into the sticks, one of my friends' properties, or I can rent a spot on someone's back in their property, give them the extra money, shovel their driveway, whatever,
Yeah, or you could just drive up a bus
Right.
and have it as a tiny home.
Oh, I would love to go that. I want to do a whole
That'll be the next segment when we're going to talk.
double decker.
Yeah, there we are. Yeah, double decker.
Double
tiny home.
decker in red called Penny Lane.
Yeah, there we are. Yeah, Penny.
That was
Penny.
my idea. And I looked for one. Because you used to be able to get them in Toronto dirt cheap because they would buy X amount of them from England, and then they would either chop the roof off and turn them into a tourist thing, or the upper deck is open. But
Also, we have here. Yeah, we got tour buses like that here. There's no roof. No roof on it.
Some of them they didn't chop. They just used them for they bring them from England. And it would be used as like charities and for tours and whatever in Niagara Falls. And I haven't seen one in a long time, but I had this whole idea of a double-decker tiny home that had the whole sliding windows, gas lit with the whole deck that came up, you know.
Next time that I see one, Ellen, I'm going to take a picture of it because we do have them here for the tour buses. There's no roof over it. You see them all sitting on the deck.
I think you could probably hodgepodge it. I mean, take an old school bus which has a pretty simple roof line and actually have it grafted in to the top of a existing double decker that had been chalked.
Just call it tiny home, sky's the limit.
Well, I'm old enough to remember, and you are too, Brent, that you know, in the 70s and early 80s, you know, Vancouver was kind of a sleepy town, really. I mean, everything was kind of like all your costs were kind of depressed. Like Vancouver really wasn't an attractive place necessarily, right? I mean, it was like you know, just
he hadn't come in yet, right?
Yeah, and like you said before, like Expo 86 kind of everybody came then, and like then the lights turned on and it was like, oh, Vancouver. But before that, Vancouver was kind of a sleepy town, and like, you know, when my parents bought their place, they had in Burnaby, it was like, I think they bought in maybe 66 or something, a couple of years before I was born. But they bought their place for I think it was like $28,000 or something for a house, and it was a, you know, pretty big house too. And I mean, at that time, all you were doing was you know, when you're shopping for houses, it was like, well, do you want a bit more square footage? You'll put in maybe another couple $1,000 or something, or if you want like more fancy fixtures, here's another couple thousand. But it wasn't like, you know, another couple $100,000 or you know, kind of thing, you know. And I don't know, things are really out of whack now, and you just think, well,
my parents,
if governments had a crystal ball like all those years ago and thought, well, wow, things are really going to get screwed up, you know.
I was watching a segment and they're talking like when the economist says, oh, the prices are going to go right back where, you know, down again. No, they're not. No, never. They've been there, done that. They're going to keep going up.
There was a time when my bachelor apartment would have been, and that's not too long ago, 8 years ago maybe. This apartment I'm in now would have been half of what I'm paying now, $650, $700, maybe. And renting a room was like $200-300 a month. You can't even rent a room in a small suburb like Welland, Ontario, 10 minutes from Niagara Falls, Ontario, for less than $1,000.
It's just pure greed, and it's opportunity. It's financialization. I encourage people to that are listening is to check out. It's a documentary from Lalani Farha, and it's called Push the Film. Lalani Farha is the lead person in the documentary. but Frederick Gurton is he's actually the editor producer for the documentary, a well put together documentary, and it's about the gentrification and the financialization of the housing market. She used to be the housing rapporteur, and now she's actually more involved directly in bringing the awareness of all the inequalities, and she's I believe it's for Push, but yeah, I'll have to get more information on that for you. But
who's the better editor and producer, Brent?
well, we have the editor producer right here for Canadians with Disabilities and their Allies, Neil. Yeah,
and the show's over. You have to pull the plug now.
Yeah, exactly. I want to thank you, Alan, for coming on today. It's always a pleasure having you on. We're gonna dive into the
I didn't get into the photography stuff. That's okay.
Oh, next time.
Next time.
You and I can show off all of our camera gear.
Yeah, for sure.
Would you quick?
There's been a lot of people lately have been asking about a documentary. I've been hearing about it, saying like, where do I find out more information about the housing crisis? And I keep referring people back to it. I will post it out on people who do have access to Twitter. I know that Elon calls it X. I still call it Twitter because that's what it is. It's Twitter, people. Yeah. So, and I'll call it, retweet. He calls it repost. I call it retweet. Retweet, like,
and I'm writing on stone tablets.
Yeah.
For the people that don't know, I've quit Twitter, so I haven't blocked everybody or anything like that. It's just that I've left Twitter.
I'm actually, for people that are listening to the podcast right now, they might have been confused, thinking, well, like, because Neil had put a posting out, like told me to put a posting out because he left Twitter. I'm still there. I said that I'm here. I decided that I'm on Twitter. I'm still there right now. I don't know for how long. I'm going to be there as long as I can. Now, if something happens that I'm not on Twitter, I want you please to subscribe to Neil Matheson's YouTube channel. You're going to find the latest podcasts for Breaking with Brent, traveling segment, coffee time segments, you name it. All the shows are here.
Actually, and this is a good plug now, actually. With this episode, Alan, you are episode 57. And with this episode, I've now got 300 videos. So this is the 300th video. Your episode, Alan, is the 300th video that I've posted on the channel.
Wow,
that's a lot of content. So it's people, huge. If you come to the channel and say there's nothing to watch here, we'll start and go through all 300 videos. There's a lot. There's all your Breaking with Brents. There's all kinds of stuff. And like when you're on Twitter Spaces, you did about 100 shows, and we're like, we're a little bit slower this year. We're only at 57, but at the same time, I think overall we've actually put up more content overall compared to last year. If you think about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, we have put a lot of content out, and there's more content to put out with more people joining onto the show. And regardless of their their viewpoints on advocacy, I welcome all different viewpoints on advocacy for sure, right? And join the show. I mean, that's what it's about, is bringing the awareness, bringing the inequalities, lived experience, and then we bring it all to the show. As an ally, as a person with a disability. We must end legislative poverty in Canada. Poverty has no place in Canada to exist. It's legislated by the bureaucrats.
I think we have a really, I'll leave on this note, so to speak. I think we have a really good opportunity with the fact that Manitoba now has its first, not only an NDP, but its native First Nations leader.
Right.
And I think we have an opportunity as people with disabilities to see if he'll push to do basic income in Ontario, in Manitoba.
Yeah.
I believe that if we can get him to do it, PEI might catapult theirs. And if you get more provinces, they have conservative parties, they'll feel the pressure. And if the federal government starts going, well, we'll do more transfers to the provinces that are doing a basic income, you'll start seeing conservatives going, oh, we're going to launch a basic income.
Oh, exactly. Remember the time we used to joke around about kicking the door down? Once you kick that door down, right? It's like a domino effect, right? You know,
that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking if we can,
the door's open a little bit.
Just kick it down,
Just kick it down. Every other province is going to follow it. So if Manitoba is the one to get it going
in Manitoba, and if we can get them to go, listen, AI is coming. You know it's coming. You represent First Nations people who have been living in abstract poverty. We want to see a basic income start the domino effect, because if you guys do it and you believe it's a good idea, and you can get the federal government to
AI's coming.
more transfers as an incentive. It doesn't have to be maybe $500,000 or I mean, that's consider the amount of money that they're sending, that they sent Ukraine.
Oh, I know.
Right? They sent a third.
That could go toward basic income. Yeah. I mean, you think about how you mentioned AI is coming, you know, it's like iPad rent.
I mean, it's gonna sift in such a way that it already has. It's seeping into even my Photoshop.
Oh yeah, all the photo editors now have it. Yeah,
right. And now Adobe's giving each person that subscribes X amount of credits, and each time you do something with AI in the app, you use up a credit. But that's okay, because I'm not using. The only thing I've used it for is to get rid of the background or whatever. I really try not to use it. I've clicked select subject where it will use the AI to actually select just that, but it doesn't always get it right either. Sometimes it selects if there's a reflection, it'll screw up a little bit.
It happens. It happens to us sometimes.
AI will be implemented so quickly, not just in a digital capacity, but we'll start seeing automation in ways that there's a McDonald's, I'll end on this, in the States right now, with not one person works there. It is completely autonomous.
Wow.
But to me, that sucks. Like I walked into the Shoppers Drug Marts now.
Oh yeah.
I have a Shoppers by my house, pretty close. And you walk in there and they don't even have anybody staffed there anymore. They just have like this one line by the door where you can just scan your item, and then you walk out.
In the pharmacy in the back, and that's
it's just crazy.
There was a show that I was watching just a couple of days ago. There was a little clip, and then it was actually a little part on the news, and it was talking about there's a place, a couple of shops in the U.S., I believe it is now, that testing this, where this is scary. There's no employees working whatsoever, and actually you just go through with your card. And you just tap it. You grab out of the cooler or whatever it is, and it was actually an Amazon. That's what it was. It was an Amazon store.
Yeah, to me that's scary shit.
The cameras are all watching you though, so they know what you're grabbing. So there's no discrepancy of saying, "Well, did you grab this or that?" Well,
we'll start seeing it in places.
Big Daddy's watching you.
I think people have forgotten or governments have forgotten that human beings are human beings for a reason. We
Yeah.
need human interaction. We don't need
Yeah.
interaction with computers. We need human interaction.
Yeah.
The more humans you remove from the equation, the more we become not human. And I don't think that should be the goal, to
Yeah,
become less human, right?
well, I
Yeah.
mean, I think we're gonna start
iPad.
That's
the,
right.
in the US.
Resistance is futile, Brent.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got to wrap up. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alan, I want to thank you so much for coming on. We'll catch up on the next segment where we left off.
Yeah, we'll talk robots.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, that'll be a great topic we'll get
Robots
into.
sending the greetings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Greetings, Alan.
That's right.
It'll be just a little machine with a tablet on its
Yeah.
face.
Yeah.
And you walk into
Thanks
Walmart,
everyone for tuning in today.
Thank you, everyone.
and
Thank
not
you.
only will it greet you, but three of its teacher friends will be mopping the floor in aisle 7, 8, and 9, and they all look the same because they'll just buy movies.
Okay.